Welcome to week one of Design and Development of Educational Technology. I'm Eric Klopfer, professor and director of the Scheller Teacher Education Program and the Education Arcade at MIT. This week we'll start by looking at educational technologies across time. We'll then focus in on a specific educational technology called Logo and some of its descendants and how they embodied a learning theory called constructionism.
And I'm Judy Perry, a research manager here in the Scheller Teacher Education Program. So we are supposed to talk about the history of educational technology. That's a pretty tall order. Eric, where do we start?
How about with paper?
What, this?
Sure, paper was one of the original educational technologies. In fact, it was quite cutting edge at the time. It really changed the way we teach and learn.
And of course, the printing press was a huge educational technology. Before it came along, classes often involved one person reading a book aloud and everyone else writing it down. Now, you could read it on your own and actually have a discussion about the text.
It created what we might think of today as the flipped classroom.
But there have always been critics of things like these. Plato said that moving from spoken discourse to written word would make students disrespectful and shallow because they would not be using their memories.
So basically everything old is new again.
Right. Bringing technology into education has always been a bit controversial because it does change the way we learn in two big ways.
Right, content and procedure.
Yeah.
So educational technologies often change how we access content, making it easier, cheaper, or faster to get our hands on information. But it can also change the procedure of learning, often enabling us to do things we couldn't otherwise, or changing the way we practice and learn new skills.
And pretty much every technology falls into one or both of these categories. So print media, that's content.
Chalkboards, that's procedures. Teachers can demonstrate things in front of a whole class.
And overhead projectors would be procedure too. And film strips, television, stuff like that. That would be content.
Something like slide rules or calculators, that would be procedure.
Can we throw an abacus in there?
Sure, even though it was a little before my time.
Okay, well, how about computers?
Whoa, that's a big one.
Well, it's definitely a technology, and it affects both content and procedure.
It's also the moment we've all been waiting for, and what most people probably think of as educational technology, computers in classrooms. But it's really just an educational technology.
Okay, so since this is such a huge game changer, we'll treat this computer era as its own topic. Let's talk about four distinct eras of classroom computing: the introduction of PCs, edutainment and CD-ROMs, early internet, and mobile devices.
Computers started finding their way into K-12 classrooms in the 1970s, back when I was in elementary school. I remember small numbers of them getting into classrooms. But they really started to take off in the 1980s as the price points for PCs became more affordable for more districts.
But if there were computers in the classroom, they generally weren't enough for everyone, and students would have to share or work together. And I remember when I was in elementary school gathering a group of us around the computer and using Logo, for example. So if a teacher wanted to have one-on-one technology experience, they might be able to sign up for a slot in a computer lab.
Advanced processing, graphics, and internet access were a long way off at this point. So early applications were simple things like Number Munchers or Oregon Trail. Many of these games became classics. Or sometimes people would learn to type or use programming languages like Logo.
As we moved into the late 80s and 90s, processing power and graphics made more sophisticated games possible, and educational games became popular both in and out of the classroom. You also started to see a lot of games that weren't primarily designed as educational tools, but required problem solving and analytical skills like SimCity, Myst, and Civilization.
During this time, there were also a lot of educational CD-ROMs. Some were just digital encyclopedias, others provided supplemental activities for textbooks, or provided an interactive look at complex systems like human anatomy. Many of these delivered information in a fairly passive manner, though some were used for interactive tutorials for subjects like foreign language that benefited from the multimedia platform. The arrival of the internet era pretty much killed the era of the CD-ROMs. As soon as everything was available online, there was no reason to have to buy discs.
Oh, well, and while research became much easier for students, they also had to learn to discriminate between good sources and not so good ones. Similarly, teachers were able to reach out to their peer educators in really new ways to access free resources, but they had to separate some of the wheat from the chaff.
The combination of the internet and the rising production value of commercial games forced a lot of the educational game developers out of the market.
Then, in the 2000s, smaller computers became more affordable. Wi-Fi started spreading and everything got shaken up all over again. The idea of one laptop per child started to spread, with some school districts providing laptops to all their students. And in some school districts, they're even experimenting with BYOD, bring your own device, where students bring their own phones and tablets into classes.
Well, there have been many technologies that have affected education over the course of history, and each has had some impact, big or small, but observable. They change the way we access information and the way we learn and practice skills and bodies of knowledge.
And as the capabilities of computers evolve and technology becomes cheaper, the tools available to us change accordingly.
This course itself is part of a new movement in educational technology that we're just beginning to explore, so off we go.